Hey guys, Shouldoge here. Today we're going to be looking at the PK Speed 1, which I bought from the official PK Gamers store on AliExpress in 450 by 400 millimeters, which is unfortunately the only size this pad comes in. They have a couple different designs to choose from, including a white version of this nice design that they have, but I decided to go with this color. So we'll get started with the surface. Not sure what's the trend with straight up lying about the surface with the name. I mean, it was first the Ultra Control V2, which was just a speed pad, and then now it's the PK Speed, which is more of a control mud pad, but either way, this is more of a control pad leaning into the mud pad territory. I'll show a macro of the weave of this pad. It's very densely weaved, which you can definitely feel from the very smooth surface. It's ultra skin friendly. Really feels like a luxury experience. And speaking of PK, I do have the PK Control one underneath of this to compare it to. The PK Speed one is definitely a tad slower, with much less tactility than the PK Control one. The PK Control one definitely focuses on the aspect of providing tactility while still being comfortable. The PK Speed focuses much more on creating the smoothest surface possible. I have no humidity issues, but sweat does affect the surface of the pads sometimes, but not too much. It's really nothing compared to other pads. Definitely not the most sleeve-friendly pad. There's not too much to discern on the x-axis, but once you get to the y-axis, it starts to catch on the pad. But this pad is smooth enough to the point where you won't have any issues with skin irritation anyway. Now, getting into the base is the same budget rubber you'll find on most PK pads, but unlike other PK pads, this does a much better job with the implementation of the base so that there is no noticeable unevenness with the surface in-game. And I'll show an example of how plush this base is. I will say it does feel a lot more plush than the PK Control 1. There's also a lot more properties that make this base better than the PK Control one, or at least the old version of the PK Control one. It feels softer, more sticky. If anything, it feels maybe a little bit thicker. It is a very good upgrade and a big step up. I wasn't expecting this big of a step up when they said they made improvements to the old versions of the PK Control and the PK Speed pads. It does take a bit of pressure to push in dot skates to the point where they even out and you feel scratching, but it is definitely there. So if you use dot skates, you might want to up the amount of dot skates you put on your mouse before you use this pad. There are no problems with the base becoming less adherent over time. So yeah, this base is just really well done. One of the best implementations of this rubber base that I've encountered in a pad. Quality-wise, stitching is nice, if not a little bit inconsistent. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of unevenness in distance from stitch to stitch. There also seems to be some printing issues where some of the ink splatters across the stitching, but it's really nothing to complain about. It doesn't have the same heat treatment issue as the PK Control one, where there were these little bits of like plastic that kind of felt sharp whenever you glided over them with your arm, which is really nice. Stitching is nice and plush and just about even with the surface of the pad, much better than the PK Control one, which was slightly above the surface of the pad. You won't notice yourself going over with full skates and with dot skates, just barely. I mean, it's definitely a bit more noticeable than other pads, but it's really nothing to complain about, especially at this price. I will say the only complaint I have with the stitching that's big enough to mention is the tag. I'm not a big fan of the tag. I think the old PK pads were a lot better with just having the logo printed on the pad. This tag is just, it's a bit of a nuisance. It makes it so this area is completely invalid. You can't cross over it without feeling it. So, not the best implementation in that regard. But, again, nothing too big to complain about. It does come a little bit dirty. There are almost flakes of dirt the first time I was using it, and I actually found a pretty big piece of plastic when I was using it the first time. But it's really nothing that a good wash can't take care of, so if you wash your pads before you use them anyway, then you won't have any trouble with this pad. And other dirt and debris slides off pretty easily. I don't have any issues with them sticking into the pad or anything. And there are no major bumps or unevenness with the surface either. So now, as for the price, it was $15 with shipping on AliExpress when I bought it at the time of purchase. But with the tariffs, it'd be best to wait until late May to buy this pad or any of the PK pads. With its price with tariffs, it's around $28, which I don't think is... It's not the best of deals at that price. It came rolled up in a box, but had zero problems rolling out flat. I mean, unlike the old PK control pad that I got, it rolled out perfectly flat the first time. No coatings, it doesn't feel any different than when I first got it. Yeah, and in conclusion, this is a serious step up from the old PK control one and just the old PK pads in general. I should probably revisit the newer version of the PK control one just to see if the changes are as good as this pad, because I'm seriously impressed with the revisions they made. If you can get this pad at a good price, it is very well worth it. It might have been one of my mains were it not for it only coming in 450 by 400 millimeters, so if PK ever makes bigger pads, there will be some serious consideration there. If you're in the market for a budget control pad to a light muddy mouse pad, this is an easy buy. You should just buy it, no questions asked. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.